And again, welcome everyone who's tuning in tonight from their home, and to the members of council and our staff. And we'll proceed with our land acknowledgement at this point. As we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. As a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it, and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. Thank you, everyone. And I'll move to Ms. Masula Collison, if she could go through item number 2, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as presented.
And is there a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Neebs, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures at this time? Councillor Demi, go ahead, please.
When it relates to section 14.5 with the Exeter Lions, I am a member of the club.
Very well, thank you. And you provided the document I see. That's great. Thank you. Moving right along, any other disclosures at this time? Any disclosures? Not seeing. Thank you. No presentations. And we move to our delegations under 5.1. And we welcome Candace and Kristen to the meeting tonight. Hey, Kristen, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having us here today.
Great to have you. Hi, Candace. Good to see you.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Great to have both of you here. And because you're a joint delegation, you have 20 minutes to present.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So we briefly introduced ourselves, but we can just quickly do that again. I am Kristen Crane. I am the Director of Social Research and Planning with the United Way Perth Huron.
And I am Candace Cunningham, a registered dietitian with Huron Perth Public Health.
So we are going to take you through 2 related research reports that we have produced towards the end of 2022 and early 2023, and finishing off with a few recommendations as relates to food insecurity. So in November 2022, the Social Research and Planning Council team created and implemented a survey to capture the food insecurity characteristics in Huron and Perth County. And because of the extensive promotion and community efforts, 740 surveys were completed. The data was analyzed and the key findings will be presented to you today. Next. Food insecurity is defined as inadequate or insecure access to food due to financial constraints. And 33% of participants are facing moderate or food insecurity based upon our survey. Only 3% of respondents felt their income met their everyday needs. Unfortunately, when a household is experiencing food insecurity, they are already likely struggling financially to cover other basic living expenses. Next. The main source of household income for the majority of respondents, 62%, was full-time employment. So 62% of people were full-time employed that filled out this survey. Provincially, 48% of food insecure households in Ontario have employment income. Next. So do the incomes of our survey participants meet their needs? No, and even though they're working full-time. And 37% of participants said that it didn't meet their needs. So this data demonstrates that wages in our region are not sufficient to meet basic needs. In fact, 81% of the most common jobs in Perth Huron are below $25 per hour based upon 2020 data. So we do know that food insecurity is solved by providing and increasing incomes that meet a living wage and providing a guaranteed basic income to meet basic needs of individuals. Next. So our survey found that 88% of people have sacrificed their household food budget to pay other living expenses. And the most common expense that forced households to reduce their food budget is rent or mortgage at 67%, followed by transportation and 59%, and utilities at 59%. So households living on low income struggle to pay the rent and the bills and food. Food budgets are flexible and therefore are sacrificed to pay other bills and expenses. Next. When asked if they had been in situations where they could not afford balanced meals for themselves and their household, 38% of respondents said that this was often the case, and 44% it was sometimes the case. And the main food that people are unable to afford are meats, vegetables, fruits, and dairy products. Next. So 33% of people indicated that they had to cut the size of a meal or skip meals because there was not enough money. And this happened almost every month. And 9% of participants said that they had to cut the size of their child's meals, or children had to skip a meal almost every month because there was not enough money to buy food. We also asked if people ever had to go an entire day without eating because there was not enough money. 19% said it happened almost every month. And I really want to draw your attention to this. 3% of our respondents said that their children had to go an entire day without food almost every month. 7% said that this happened some months. So this means that there are many, many households in our region with children who are going an entire day without eating. Next.
When we look at the national and provincial data, we know that in 2021, 16% of households were living with food insecurity. And when we look a little bit more locally, for 2021, we found that 14.6% of Huron and Perth residents were living with food insecurity. And I do want to note that this statistic from 2021 is significantly greater than the results that were found prior to the pandemic, which were from 2017 at 11%. So despite significant evidence that food insecurity is an income problem, responses in Canada continue to focus on food provision with the most emphasis on food charities. Sorry, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in the number of households experiencing food insecurity and the number of households who rely on food banks for food. In 2012, there were 5 times more people living in food insecure households than those assessing food banks. More recent data from 2015, 2016 suggests that it's actually more than that, up to 7 times different. Food banks are often the last resort for people to obtain food. Most ask for financial help from family or friends, or will miss a payment before using a food bank. While food banks do provide temporary relief who do access them, there is no evidence that they are a solution to food insecurity.
So in our local survey, almost 50% of participants said that they had never used any food community programs, which could be food boxes, community meals, food banks, or food pantries. And as Candace has shared, this is consistent with other national studies. Next. So 48% of respondents had often been in situations where they had run short of money and had to sacrifice their food budget. But what are some of the mental health implications of an inadequate food supply? Next.
So there are many health implications when someone lives in a food insecure household that go far beyond nutrition. So when looking at mental health, the risk of experiencing depression, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, or suicide thoughts increases with the severity of food insecurity for both adults and children. During childhood, it leads to problems such as hyperactivity and inattention. Mortality, which is the most serious health consequence of food insecurity, is that severely food insecure adults die an average of 9 years earlier than those who are in food secure households. Nearly 50% of adults who live in severely food insecure households report delaying, reducing, or skipping prescription medication to manage their health conditions because they cannot afford them. Food insecure individuals are more likely to get admitted into acute care and have longer hospital stays compared to those who are food secure. Living with severe food insecurity costs our healthcare system over $2,000 per year per person more compared to those who are food secure.
So our local findings highlight that 38% of participants reported facing physical and mental challenges. 31% had relationship issues at home, and 29% had barriers to moving forward with their lives. 22% people had low productivity at work or school. Next.
So now we're going to switch gears into the cost of eating report conducted by Huron-Perth Public Health, which is called Monitoring Food Affordability. So to monitor food affordability, Huron-Perth Public Health surveys a variety of food from grocery stores across the 2 counties using a survey tool called Monitoring Food Affordability, which has formerly been known as the Nutritious Food Basket. We calculate the cost of 1 week's worth of groceries. In 2022, this tool was updated to reflect the new Canada's Food Guide. Unfortunately, due to this update, the results cannot be compared to previous years. This survey is conducted by pricing 61 food items using the lowest available cost in 6 area grocery stores and then calculating the average retail price. A few limitations about this tool is that it assumes that people have the time, skill, and equipment to cook these food items, and it does not include prepared convenience foods or household non-food items such as toiletries. Additionally, the Monitoring Food Affordability tool and results are not to be used as a budgeting tool. So now I'll go into the results that we found. So when we read down the left-hand side of the table, you can see 4 different income scenarios. All of these scenarios include a household with children with different income sources. The family of 4 that you will see here consists of 2 children and 2 adults. Across the top of the table, we will see the monthly income, the monthly cost of rent, monthly cost of food, and then the funds remaining after paying for rent and food. So from this chart, you can see that a household with children receiving Ontario Works has much less money remaining at the end of the month, which would have to be put towards heat and hydro if that's not included in the rent, as well as childcare, clothing, transportation, school supplies, and anything else that one may need to purchase throughout the month. Again, I do want to note that the food portion of this tool does not include non-food items. So things like laundry detergent, soap, toilet paper would all have to be covered under the funds remaining. So here are 4 additional scenarios. The table is set up the same, just that the income scenarios have changed to show households without children from various income scenarios. So from this chart, we can see that an individual receiving social assistance, so that being Ontario Works or Ontario Disability, are already in debt after paying for just rent and food, which is leaving no money left over for additional expenses. But you can also see here that the 2 other scenarios aren't in much better shape. I also do want to draw the attention to a bachelor apartment, so a single person on Ontario Works. They are nearly impossible to find in Huron and Perth counties to rent. Therefore, they would either need to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, which would put them further into debt, or would be forced to share living expenses with a roommate in a 2-bedroom. The results from the income analysis show that the scenario spreadsheet are communicated in various ways for the purposes of both education and advocacy. So public health dietitians across Ontario may engage in any of these types of activities. And then I just screen grabbed an article that Huron and Perth Public Health did this last 2022, showcasing our results. Additionally, Ontario public health dietitians do further advocacy work in food insecurity as a position statement was released in 2020 and has been endorsed by a variety of organizations, which does include the Huron-Perth Board of Health.
Next. So living wage is calculated on an annual basis by the Social Research and Planning Council for our region, and it's based upon research of actual local costs, some of which Candace has shared earlier. And in end of 2022, the living wage for Perth Huron is set at $20.70. So the living wage is the hourly wage a worker needs to earn to cover their family's basic everyday expenses, such as food, housing, utilities, childcare, and transportation. People who are paid adequately have improved nutrition and better health, and no longer have the stress of having to choose between paying the rent or covering bills or buying groceries. Next.
So you may be,
oh, no, go ahead.
Sorry. You may be wondering how your council can play a part in reducing food insecurity. So there are a few ways to get involved with this work. So one way to get involved is that your council could advocate to federal and provincial government for policies and programs to ensure adequate income for Canadians, such as basic income guaranteed, social assistance rates indexed to inflation, or a living wage, which we just heard about. You could also organize or volunteer at a local free income tax filing clinic. So very this time of year are filing their taxes. You can also offer additional free sports and recreation activities to families in this area. And so these recommendations simply will free up funds that families can use towards purchasing nutritious food. So just to get you started with this work, we did actually write a letter to the Government of Canada on your behalf that you can choose to sign and send to advocate for basic income. It is found in the report for the cost of healthy eating, the last 2 pages. So basic income, in case folks don't know what that is an unconditional cash transfer from the government that enables everyone to meet their basic needs, allows them to participate in society, and to live a life with dignity regardless of work status. A guaranteed basic income takes into account all other income one is guaranteed to receive and supplements them with the remaining. Therefore, if you have sufficient income from other sources, you would not receive this payment. At times, we'll be faced with financial risks, and this will allow all of us to meet our needs, participate in society, and live with dignity at any point in our lives. There has also been multiple pilots across Canada on basic income that shows how successful this program is. One closest to us was implemented in Hamilton, Brantford, and Brant County, and that despite only being implemented for a year, we've seen that participants experience a decrease in food insecurity, improvements in mental and physical health, and even found a decrease in smoking and alcohol use. In this pilot, majority of participants continued to work, and only a small number quit their jobs and did so to pursue further education or to find a better paying job.
Thank you. And if you had any questions, we would be pleased to answer them. Thank you. And back to you, please, Mayor.
Thanks very much, folks. That was a good presentation. And can we drop the screen then? Is that possible? Great. Okay, any questions from members of council? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Just more of a comment. Thank you very much, Kristen and Candace, for your presentation. There's definitely a lot to unpack and understand when it comes to food insecurity. Thank you for providing a few ideas of how we could potentially make an impact. One of the things that this reminded me of when I was reading through your presentation earlier was our community safety and well-being plan. And a lot of what's within our community safety and well-being plan is preventative actions in the context of the social determinants of health, which definitely food insecurity would fit in with that. And we know too that preventative measures up front have the ability to solve the issues further down the road, and also are more economical as well. So I'm looking forward to the conversation at our next council meeting about how or what we could potentially do as a council. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Mayor, and thank you, ladies, for the presentation tonight. Just one question on the income scenarios that you had, the first chart of 4 with the families with children. The cost of rent, I was curious on the single parent with 2 children, the 2-bedroom was more expensive than the 3-bedroom, and I'm just wondering on that number there, it was $1,423 for the 3-bedroom, and then it was $1,622 for the 2-bedroom. I just wondered, can you explain that to me? Why it's more expensive for the 2-bedroom?
Yes, and that is due. Yeah, sorry, that is due to lack of data that we have available to us in our 2 counties. And so there's not very many 3-bedroom apartments that we can pull data from for the cost. And so simply because there's such a wide spread of cost for 2-bedroom, it draws down the cost. And some of the 2-bedrooms were part of senior living in Clinton, and those costs are significantly less as well, which further draws it down.
Councillor Oak.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, you're not seeing. Thank you very much for the presentation. Well done, and look forward to see you folks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And Ms. Masuda-Carlson, the recommendation, please.
That South Huron Council receives the delegation regarding food insecurity as presented by Candace Cunningham, registered dietitian, Huron Perth Public Health, and Kristen Crane, Director, Social Research and Planning.
And is there a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Denemy, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. And any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you very much. Public meeting, there's no public meeting. Minutes. Mr. Masuda-Carlson.
That South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023, as printed and circulated.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Number 8, Mr. Masuda-Carlson.
That the minutes, reports, and correspondence of the following committee and or board be received as presented to council. Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority agenda correspondence and reports of February 16th, 2023, and Upper Thames River Conservation Authority agenda package of February 28th, 2023.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please. Your microphone.
Sorry about that. Yes, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things on the ABCA. One of the reports you may have noticed in the package from the ABCA meeting was on Bill 23. And we had quite a bit of discussion around that report from staff during our last ABCA meeting. I think in the general interpretation in some municipalities, it appeared as though Bill 23 was basically asking the the conservation authorities to stay completely out of the planning kind of discussion in terms of advice and so on and so forth. So that report was meant to give us all some clarity in terms of, yes, there are some changes in terms of what conservation authorities are no longer required to give advice on. But these basically relate to items that were already considered non-category 1. And for those of you who don't remember, or never knew. Category 1 are core services of the ABCA. And so discretionary or non-mandatory services would be the ones that they would be looking at. And even more specifically, these were items that were under 10 different provincial acts, but mainly focused on natural heritage items as opposed to any kind of hazard items. So wherever there are still hazardous conditions in land planning or any of those 10 different acts, conservation authorities are still going to continue to have a role to play in providing advice. So I think they really only came into giving advice on natural heritage items maybe only 8 years or so ago. Okay, when it started to become a big thing. So it's kind of been clawed back. I believe when we have the ABCA actually come and talk to council, they'll be able to talk to that a little bit more, because everybody's kind of feeling their way through what are the interpretations under Bill 23. And so I'm just giving you a little taste of what we were given at the last board of director meeting, something for you to keep in mind as we're moving forward down the path of Bill 23.
Great.
The second item that I'd like to bring up is, you probably noticed that there is a invitation to attend the ABCA Partner Appreciation Evening, which is happening on March 16th at Ironwood. And that invitation is open to everyone on council, including our CAO and spouse or partner, if you should like to attend. The only thing that we're asking is that you respond to that invitation if you're going by March 9th, so we can deal with seating and food and other things logistically that we have to deal with. We have this partner appreciation evening once a year, and it's an opportunity for us to give out a Conservation of the Year award, and also an opportunity for us to hear from other environmental experts. We have somebody coming to talk to us about algae blooms, which anybody who's near a lake is usually pretty interesting stuff to hear what's happening and how we might be able to mitigate some of those issues. So just wanted to take that opportunity to bring that up to everybody.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Vaughn. Any other comments? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
I'm not sure if it's been brought up, if it was brought up at the last meeting, but congratulations to Councillor Vaughn on becoming the chair of the ABCA. That's fantastic that we have you in that position, and it's great for the ABCA as well. So congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm honored to be there, and it was brought up last meeting, but thank you yet again. Thanks. Bye.
Great. And any other comments and or questions? Okay, not seeing. We have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with hands up. 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Oh, did you? Oh, sorry, 6. Then that's fine. 6. Yep. No problem. And then item number 7, or sorry, 9, Ms. Masood Collison.
That South Huron Council receives a report of Jeremy Becker, General Manager of Community and Emergency Services, Pumper Tanker Award, and that South Huron Council accepts the tender received from Carrier Emergency Vehicles, Inc. of Brantford, Ontario, in the amount of $588,250 plus HST.
And is there a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Just wondered from Jeremy on the tenders that came in. Are you satisfied with the responses that you got?
Chief Becker.
Thank you. Through the chair, we did receive 2 response tenders. This one came within budget. The second one was over budget, and the truck was also too high to fit in the station. So the low bidder was the successful bidder on this tender.
Great, thank you. And any other questions? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, Jeremy, in our budget, we had two different sources to fund this piece of equipment. About 515,000 in fire reserves, and $147,000 was coming from Blue Water as a result of the fire services agreement that we just recently signed. We are going to be getting a surplus, assuming we go ahead with this bidder. And so my question is really the 146 or 147,000 that Blue Water was responsible for in the budget process, has that been correspondingly reduced as a result of the more favorable amount?
Chief Becker.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, the amount has come down. The actual amount for the 22.2% that Blue Water is responsible for is 132,889.91. So it's lower than the actual budgeted amount because the truck did come in under budget.
Follow up.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Perfect. Any other questions for Chief Becker? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries of 7. Thank you. Thanks, Chief. And we're going along. 9.3.1.
That South Huron Council receives a report from Alyssa Keller, Manager of Environmental Services, and Don Giberson, General Manager of Infrastructure and Development. Read tender results for Exeter WWTP filter pumping station upgrade, and that South Huron Council accept the tender received from Finbuilt General Contracting Limited and authorize award of a contract for the filter pumping station upgrades at Exeter WWTP in the amount of $1,066,252.18, including HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a comment. It's nice to see 6 tenders coming in on a project, that there's significant interest. So I think as Don and staff have worked to push the tenders out early this, as possible, I think helps to get some interest there. Just curious on the comments on the winning bid being the second lowest. Just any comments on that?
Mr. Giberson, welcome. How are you?
Good evening, Mayor Finch, members of council. I appreciate the compliment. The staff have worked very hard this year to get the tenders out, and we're reaping the rewards of early tendering. With respect to the automatic rejection of the low bidder, everything that we've stated publicly is all that we can, all the information that we can provide in open council.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Giberson. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. 9.3.2, Ms. Masuda Carlton.
The South Huron Council receives the report from Don Giberson, General Manager of Infrastructure and Development, and Shane Timmermans, Manager of Transportation Services. Read tender results for replacement of South Road Bridge, Structure 1065, and that South Huron Council accept the tender received from Omega Contracting Company Limited and authorize award of a contract for replacement of South Road Bridge Structure number 1065 in the amount of $558,670.79, including HST.
And is there a mover, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and just comment again. Thank you for getting this out early. 9 tenders on this one, so lots of interest again. I guess just with some of the things that are being uncovered with some of the tenders that come in. I know we work on our procurement bylaw, or we have one in place, and I guess just wondering, do we need to review that procurement bylaw? Just because there's been some things come in on some of these tenders that maybe would have saved us some money if we had a little bit of wiggle room on some of this stuff. So just wondering if that's something that we are looking to explore or down the road. So
Ms. Basile Collison, could you take that?
Okay, and I believe Acting Treasurer Delbridge is on as well, but what I can say is that staff are looking at the procurement policy again this term of council.
Thank you. Mr. Giberson, go ahead, please.
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. I would just add that the tendering issues that we have experienced are unrelated to any of the updates of our procurement bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Oak, go ahead.
and that's fair. I just didn't know if we're looking at changing or reviewing it again. The other thing I noted in the BM Ross comments there that that a start date had not been established. What is the timeline for this project that's for this construction?
Mr. Giberson?
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. This is a full replacement of the structure on South Road. So that involves in-stream work. So we're subject to the M&R regulations on the fish spawning season. So as I affectionately note, that we have to work outside the fish window. So we have not engaged in a scheduling discussion with the contractor as of yet. We wanted to get council's authorization to award a contract. Scheduling discussions would be next, but the anticipated schedule is it would be summer, like late summer work. That would put it beyond the fish spawning season. But the plan is that it would be constructed in 2023.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if I'm not seeing any, we have a mover and a seconder. Call the question, all in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. 9.3.3, I believe, or 2. Oh, sorry, yeah, 3, 9.3.3.
That South Huron Council received the report from Shane Timmermans, Manager of Transportation Services, retender results for replacement of unit number 122, articulated sidewalk maintenance machine, including attachments. And that South Huron Council accepts the tender received from Work Equipment Limited and authorize award of a contract for the supply of an articulated sidewalk maintenance machine, including a ribbon blower and sander salter spreader attachment in the amount of $199,991.92, including HST.
And is there a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Neves, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What horsepower does this machine have?
Mr. Timmermans, can you answer that? Horsepower for this machine?
That horsepower is, I believe, 75, 74 horse.
Okay, so that should be big enough. Then you can use that on Main Street and fill a gravel truck or whatever to haul snow away with.
There is a blower attachment for that. It's a different blower altogether compared to the way we load snow now with the tractor as a backup.
Great. And I see you got some extra toys. Does that mean it can cut grass too?
There is other attachments, but we don't have anything for grass cutting. We have an arm mower, so it can cut behind guide rails. That's all we have for grass maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just thanks, Shane. Just wondering, the old unit, what is the plan for it?
Mr. Timmermans?
Through you, Mayor Finch, it would be surplus on Gov Deals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Shermans. Thanks, Mr. Giberson. And moving right along, 9.3.4, I believe.
Let South Huron Council receive the report from Shane Timmerman, Manager of Transportation Services, retender results for resurfacing Gore Road and McTaggart Line. And let South Huron Council accept the tender received from Lavis Contracting Company Limited and authorize award of a contract for the resurfacing of Gore Road and McTaggart Line in the amount of $1,071,521.26, including HST.
And a mover, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Oak. Discussion. Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How many kilometers is that would like the total area or length?
Mr. Timmermans?
I believe altogether, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, for both projects, I believe, just quickly off the top of my head, I believe that's like 6.8 kilometers altogether.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, this question I actually asked this afternoon via email to Don Giberson. So I'm just wondering if he might I'll ask it again. Maybe he can share with the rest of the council. I thought it was interesting to note. I know we were to be going through the master transportation plan, but had to cancel our meeting because of a weather event. But I just wanted to be reminded what the classification of these roads, both McTaggart and the Gore, were, because that was a lot of what was being put forward in the master transportation study. So was it a like for like kind of improvement in terms of the road work, or was one or more of these roads actually being upgraded? And I'm wondering if Don, if you can just share with the rest of the council how you enlightened me this afternoon.
Mr. Giberson, welcome again. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. Both roads are class 4 roads. To give you some perspective, Airport Line is a class 3. So as the number goes down, the higher grade of the road. So the other part of the information is, are we replacing same for same? So Gore Road is a HCB, high class bituminous road surface. So it is getting resurfaced with to the same standard. So it's HCB to HCB. McTaggart Line is an LCB, or a low class bituminous surface, tar and chip. And it is being upgraded to a HCB, a high class bituminous surface. And this, we have less and less of low class bituminous roads in the municipality. And there's been a concerted effort over the years to reduce the inventory of LCB roads, because we do not get the life expectancy out of those roads. We don't get the service. So there's been a move in that direction. And that is one of the recommendations in the SOI report, to continue that practice, because that is in the best financial interest of the municipality.
Great. Follow up?
No follow up. Just thank you, Don.
Thank you. Deputy, you had something.
Yeah, just a question. I remember we had a little bit of discussion at budget time, and I think that's when it was, about making our paved roads wider. Did we put this into the contract, or was there any discussion about that when the tender went out? Thank you.
Mr. Giberson?
For this resurfacing tender, we are not proposing to widen the road. I'm going to let Shane digest that question for a little bit while I answer. But in this particular instance, there is no widening. I know when Corbett Line was paved, It was widened to get like a proper width of a roadway. So I would defer to Shane if you can provide any additional information on widening of these roads that we're resurfacing.
Thank you. Mr. Timmermans, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mayor Finch. Gore Road and both McTaggart have a substantial edge of pavement to edge of pavement. So each side, so it does have a appropriate platform width for both of those projects. So there wouldn't really be the need of widening out. As soon as we start widening out a road too, we're looking at quite the substantial costs. And that you almost have to think a couple of years down the road too before you can actually do that kind of stuff also.
Okay, thank you. Follow up? No? Any other questions? Councillor, oh, go ahead, please.
And thank you. So yeah, I think it was back in the fall that council had at that time made a recommendation that all the LCB roads would be when they were due to be replaced would be going to HCB. I think when we had our initial state of the infrastructure discussion back in September. So I guess I assume that that's the plan going forward as these roads come up. Is that the understanding that potentially everybody has?
Mr. Giberson, comment?
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. That is our understanding, and that recommendation is in the SOI report, so it'll be in one comprehensive document. Once we had an opportunity to present the full report to council, then it will form part of our program moving forward. That any LCB road would get this upgrade. It is in the best financial interest of the municipality, and it does make sense. So that is our plan.
Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Thanks, gentlemen. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Okay, moving along, Ms. Masuo-Collison.
The South Huron Council receives a report from Maggie Delbridge, Acting Treasurer, read 2022 Statement of Remuneration and Expenses.
And is there a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Denemy, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Let's see, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Are there any notice of motion tonight, Ms. Masuo-Collison?
There are none.
Items for discussion arising from the previous meetings. 11.1. Councillor Neeb, you had something? Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to staff for the report. It's good to see that there wouldn't be any interruption or any significant impact to our the municipality of South Huron being a willing host by putting forward this resolution. I think it's important that upper levels of government do hear about the impacts of the setbacks, and I'm willing to bring the motion forward for reconsideration, and unless
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Masuo-Collison. Can you comment, please?
Motion to reconsider, mover and a seconder, and then it is deliberated by council. If it proceeds, then the motion comes back for reconsideration.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Oak. Okay, thank you. And discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 5. Do you have your hand up? 5. Thank you. Or 6, sorry. Thank you. Ms. Masuo-Collison.
Okay, so that being said, then the motion comes back on the table. The motion itself is that South Huron Council support the County of Huron resolution to approve the report by CAO Megan Wark dated February 1st, 2023, titled Report to Council, Cannabis Act Information.
And we need a mover for that. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you very much. Okay, new business, 12.1, Mr. Masuo-Collison.
This is to set the council priority setting. And the resolution is that South Huron Council set a council priority setting workshop for March 13th, 2023 at 4 p.m.
And is there a move for that, please? Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. And moving along, 13, Mayor and Councillor comments and announcements. Are there any announcements at this time from members of council? Okay, Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
I had the opportunity to attend the Exeter Elementary Trivia Night, which is held at the Legion last week. Me and a group of people from the collective, we were actually in charge of putting together the trivia itself. And I'm not I believe they raised a significant amount of money, but I don't know for sure what it is, so I don't want to say it, but I believe there's about 120, 130 people out. Yeah, it was a great event. There were a lot of community sponsors for the event, and all of the money raised goes to funding trips, equipment, and specifically with busing at Exeter Elementary. So they usually do it every year. So this is the first time they've done it since COVID. So if you get a chance next year around February, March, there'll probably be another one. So
great, thank you very much. And Deputy, go ahead.
And I don't know whether this is the right time or when it should be brought up, but we had the discussion over the roads and the bridges and stuff, but there was one that I didn't see any tender. I didn't see anything on, is the that culvert on the Corbett line. And I just wondered if we could maybe get something for the next meeting. I don't expect them to do it now. If that's okay, or where we go with that.
Ms. Masuda-Carlson, can you comment on that?
Corbett line follow-up.
Yes, please.
What you're requesting? Okay. We can do that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just want to thank staff for arranging next week during March break, free public skating at both South Huron Rec Center and at the Stephen Arena, and each of the days. Want to thank them for putting that schedule together to help keep the kids occupied from driving their parents crazy during the March break week. So, and also want to congratulate the organizers of the Coldest Night of the Year Walk, another successful event, and exceeded their fundraising goal of 41,000. Yeah, just wanted to thank the organizers for that.
That's great. Any other comments? Okay, good. Yeah, and so the only comments I have, I was at the Coldest Night of the Year walk, and fantastic to see there was over 100 people at the church, and very motivated, which was really nice to see the power of the people, and they were over their goal, which is really reassuring to see that people really take this type of matter seriously in our community. The other thing I want to comment on is the great work our staff have done on the roads this past year. I received an email from someone the other day with a picture of our sidewalk plow going down the road, or down the sidewalk, sorry, and plowing the snow off it. I don't know how they see the sidewalk because it's, covered in snow, but all the roads were cleaned off in a timely manner as usual. They just do an exceptional job. So want to make sure they know that. If you could pass on our thanks to staff, Ms. Masuda-Carlson, as to how much we do appreciate all the work they do. Because our roads are in better shape than a lot of roads across the province. I can tell you that because I've traveled different parts. And since being mayor 4 years ago, I pay attention to that. And I can see very clearly that probably our worst road is some people's best road. And we have some of the best roads anywhere. So there's no issues there whatsoever. Any other comments at all? Deputy, you have something? No, we are very, very fortunate. So very well, moving right along, going to 14 communications, and we'll just ask you to, if you want something pulled, just yell it out and we'll pull it. Madam, Ms. Masuda-Carlson.
14.1, 14.2, 14.3,
pull.
14.4, 14.5, 14.6, 14.7, 14.8, 14.9, 14.10,
Pull.
14.11, 14.12.
Very well. 14.3, so I've asked for that to be pulled, and members of council had a chance to read that. Any discussion on that? Councillor Neep, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I see they're looking for someone to be appointed to the committee, and I realize that's tomorrow, tomorrow morning. But I didn't know if one of us who I'm unable to, but whether there'd be someone else who'd be willing to sit on the committee.
I think it's directed to have the mayor sit on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had discussions with them. It's more or less building the relationship and building the bridges between the hospital and the communities is basically how I read it. So, Mr. Carlson, oh, sorry, stroke.
Yeah, I think what they were requesting would be that the mayor and the CAO sit on the committee. I think that Goderich has the same, their mayor and the CAO sitting on the committee. So I would recommend the two sit on the committee.
Just go to Mr. Carlson first on a comment for the CEO position.
As far as the mayor could go for the governance piece, and I would be happy to go as an alternate if necessary. Unless council would prefer that I go as a full appointment to the committee.
Mr.
I guess I'm thinking that healthcare is huge, and with the merger of the two hospital boards now, I think with Alexander Marine and South Huron Hospital, with the two associations merging into one board, I think early days, I think it would be good to have both there, just representing South Huron's interests, because I just think it would be better to make sure that everything is going according to Hoyle for South Huron's portion of the merger. That would be my recommendation, because I'm just want to make sure that healthcare in South Huron stays strong.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And any other comments at this point? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, I just heard Councillor Oak's comments there. I didn't really think that this committee had anything to do with sort of how the boards were about to be run. I thought this was about recruitment and retention, which is sort of different from how we operate as a joint board going forward. So I'm not sure you're going to get what you're looking for by having our CAO attend. But what I would like to know is how this particular committee works with the South Huron Retention and Recruitment Committee, and if there's a need for both going forward, or what you might envision, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so the South Huron Retention Committee is more for South Huron Hospital, and this here is this keep the lines of communication open for both municipalities, both communities. I think that's where I see this. It's just a matter of just building bridges and just making sure there's nobody working in silos. I think that's really what it comes down to. But good question.
Okay, and the other thing too, somewhere along the line, I got the impression this was kind of under review right now as a terms of reference. And just from my perspective, if you could pass on that there's perhaps too many acronyms in here. So it's difficult to tell what the actual purpose of this committee is when you don't even know what the first acronym stands for. And I did note right at the top that it has a title of Alexandra Marine and General Hospital. And sort of again going back to Councillor Oak's comments, it probably would be a good idea to have South Huron Hospital in there as well. So we start off on the footing of it's both of us being represented on this committee.
Okay, very good. Okay, and Deputy, you had something.
And I also thought this was recruitment. There is a board set up. There's a board there now. To me, this has nothing to do with the board. It has to do with recruitment. And I think we need to make sure that we keep the two of them separate. Maybe we start off with the mayor going and find out what's going on. We can always appoint the CAO if we need be. But for right now, I would like to see the mayor go and see what's happening. Thank you.
I think that's really what it comes down to. It's just the mayor being aware of what's going on and bring it back through minutes or whatever notes. And that's so that we're all on the same page, because the healthcare is very important for the entire county. It's not just for South Huron or just for Goderich, just for everybody. I think that's the whole point for sure. Councillor Denny, you had something.
Just in the list of here, what they're looking for under membership, it says we're looking for a CAO from both South Huron and Goderich to be a part of this, correct? So why aren't we just gonna do that right from the get-go?
Councillor Oak?
Yes, I agree with Councillor Denemy there. If you look at their membership list there, they're asking for the CAO and the mayor from both municipalities as members. And so yeah, I'm just and in Jimmy's letter, he says the town of Exeter, but just remind them it's South Huron's hospital. So it's not the town of Goderich, either. It's the larger area as well. So but when they have it's already, the membership is skewed a little bit because they're looking at 3 medical staff from Alexander Marine and only 2 from South Huron Hospital. So I guess my spidey sense just gets a little tingly whenever we're talking healthcare, and I know how important our hospital is to South Huron, and so I just want to make sure that we're represented. I know it's recruitment and stuff, but it's just the early days of rolling out a bunch of these committees, and I want to make sure that we're getting our say. So
Absolutely. Okay. Ms. Masuda Carlson, comments at all?
Is there a resolution?
Anybody want to? I would like somebody to make. Oh, Councillor Oak, go ahead.
sure, I'd like to make a resolution that our mayor and our South Huron CAO would to be appointed to represent South Huron on the recruitment and retention committee.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Second by Councillor Denemy. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. I look forward to that. Very well. Moving right along, 14.4. Councillor Oak, did you have that pulled? Because I was going to pull that also.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just appreciate the reporting that they do every year as part of the MOU requirements, and just would like to thank the community members that run the park, and it's a very active park, and utilized quite a few days of the year. So I just want to thank them for their community volunteerism in maintaining the park.
Yeah, and I'll echo those comments too. I know I've been back there many times checking it out and talking to the people that run it. They are very passionate about that park. So it's reassuring to see that passion in South Huron. And Deputy, you had your hand up, I believe. Did you have? No, sorry. Any other comments then? Okay, not seeing any. Moving right along. 14.5, I believe, was pulled. Is that right? Okay, and then Mark, yeah, thank you. Just stand by, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And Deputy Mayor, go ahead, please.
I guess the reason I pulled this is they're such a great community group, and this is sad to see this go. I know there's absolutely nothing we can do about it, but I just wanted to mention that we're gonna miss these guys no matter how we look at it, but it's their choice. So I guess we'll have to see where it goes from here, but I don't know whether we need to do anything like we need to send anything out to thank them for what they've accomplished so far. Maybe this is not proper time for that. I don't know. I'm gonna leave that with staff's hands for right now. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Councillor. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo Deputy Mayor Dietrich's comments that I would like to thank them for everything that they've done, that they do for the municipality, and you know, I'd encourage a letter thanking them for their involvement and volunteering on many things, and leaving the door open to reviewing this MOU at a later date down the road if things change, right? That this maybe it's not something that will be a permanent thing. So you never know. So
That's good. Yeah, the Lions Club has certainly been a powerhouse in the municipality for generations, and it's something we have to be taking this very seriously. So they've done a lot of things, and they've left their fingerprint on a lot of very positive community projects over the years. Ms. Masula Carlson, any comments about sending a letter, or do you need a resolution for that?
No, we don't need a resolution for that. We will take care of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yeah, in addition to the obvious thank you for being a service club and contributing to South Huron, I did wonder what, with them stepping away, what kind of budget implications, if any, that might have for South Huron for the remainder of the 2023 year.
Ms. Masula Carlson, would you have a comment for that?
Well, as far as budget implications, at this point right now, the $5,000 was being provided, hasn't been provided for this year for the McNaughton Park Scenic Garden, and staff will be taking that maintenance over. South Huron staff. So are you asking for what the cost for?
Just that was one item, was the maintenance for the scenic garden. And also too, wasn't there also an amount that
There was a property taxes?
Yeah, something to do
That
with the use
the Lions
center?
had paid and then municipality reimbursed.
Okay, and we already did that for 20?
We haven't done that
Or
this
we
year.
have not?
No.
Okay, all right. So about $10,000 worth of items that are not being expended in one way or another.
I would say approximately. I don't know the-
Approximately.
Yes.
Okay. And we will have to take on the maintenance at the park.
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess the question is then, do we anticipate that the maintenance will be about the same with us doing it?
I'm unsure of that right now. I do know that we are doing our gardening tender at this point.
Okay.
So that information likely could come back.
Okay.
As far as the actual amount, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. Mr. Need, would you go grab Mr. Denemy, please? And moving right along, 14.7, I believe Mr. Need wanted that pulled. Go ahead, please.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Finch. Just received correspondence asking about where we're at with the Heritage Advisory Committee, and with the Heritage Advisory Committee, I was appointed by council to sit on it, and councils may establish Heritage Advisory Committees, and that work has been ongoing with the CAO. There are a number of items in the old terms of reference that need to be amended or have additions into them to reflect changes in the Heritage Act as a result of Bill 23. So some other items that will need to be discussed before it comes back to council is the quorum and just deciding what type of committee that could potentially look like. How many times a year they're going to meet, and ensuring that there is a specific mandate for meeting. I think there's a lot of potential and in having a heritage advisory committee, and that's a useful tool for us as council in order to understand our cultural and built heritage. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we just need to do everything in due process, ensure that we have all the I's dotted and T's crossed before the terms of reference comes back to council and we start recruiting for that committee. And I don't know if I covered everything or I misspoke, but I'll look to the CAO for any more information.
Ms. Basula-Collison, please.
I think you've got it all. But yes, the original terms of reference was in 2009. So we're just looking at updating that.
Okay, great. Nothing further on 14.7 then? Okay. Moving along, 14.10. Mr. Need, go ahead.
That was also me. This also has to do with heritage, and this is one of the changes that I was referring to. Municipalities can list heritage properties, and with changes within Bill 23, there is a requirement for removal of listing after 2 years, and then it can't be renewed for another 5 years. So properties that are listed every 2 years, council or an advisory committee would have to recommend relisting, and that means combing over those properties every 2 years. But if you don't, you miss the deadline, that leaves a 5-year window open. And I think in terms of us with built heritage, it's important to recognize that if we have it listed, that there is an intent and reason why these properties are listed in the first place. And I think too, for leaving that open for 5 years for demolition, I mean, there's a question of whether properties should even be listed in the first place, because it's not going to protect them. So in my opinion, I think it'd be worthwhile to support the resolution that I believe it's the town of Grimsby made in order to have the provincial government take a look back at that change and make amendments to at least maybe get rid of that 5-year window where you can't relist.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to make that motion?
Yep, I'll make that motion to support the town of Grimsby resolution.
Okay, very well. And is there a seconder for that? Councillor Dennehy, is there any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Okay, very well. Okay, that's the rest. That's all of them now. Ms. Basula-Collison, you read the recommendation, please.
Let South Huron Council receive communication items not otherwise dealt with.
Mover by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Ms. Basula-Collison.
That the South Huron Council gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 12/2023, being a bylaw to adopt a new municipal policy entitled Designation of Municipally Significant Events Policy.
And is there a mover for that, please? Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dennehy. Discussion, Councillor Oak.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Could I get some of the background on this policy of where it's come from?
Ms. Basula-Collison. Alex, did you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that.
The author?
So we received a request in from a applicant for Ribfest in Grand Bend over the summer. And usually a request for a municipally significant designation in the past may fall under the special event policy. However, there is a clause in there stating if the property is zoned for those types of events, that policy doesn't apply. So we've kind of run into how would we go about doing this type of request. And doing some background as well by implying, putting this policy into place, we would kind of streamline processes for different requests. This one in specific, they are unable to get a special occasion permit from the AGCO unless they have this type of resolution. So just in doing some background, we determined that it'd be best to have a policy brought forward. That staff report came to the February 21st council meeting. If this bylaw and policy is passed, then any request coming forward, the request itself would come to council along with staff recommendation after we've circulated for staff and stakeholder comments.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 17.2, Ms. Masuda calls.
That the South Huron Council gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 13/2023, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Corporation of the Municipality of South Huron Emergency Management Program Committee.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 18, please.
That the South Huron Council gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 14/2023, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the March 6, 2023 council meeting.
And as a mover, please. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 19.
That South Huron Council hereby adjourns at 7:18 PM to meet again on March 20th, 2023 at 6 PM or at the call of the chair.
As a mover, Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7.